So here we are. We have turned the edges up on our oven tray so that it'll catch any paint that drips off our canvases. Now we're going to put some thumbtacks on the corners of our canvases. We want to keep them off the ground because otherwise they take a good day or two to dry. And so if we don't do this little step, they'll actually stick to the table. So we put some thumbtacks on the backs of our canvases. And if you actually try and get into the seam, it's a little easier to push these guys in because they can be a bit of a challenge. They don't have to go in all the way. You just want to put them in enough so that they won't fall off when we set up our canvas and we set up, when we put the paint on top. So we'll do both canvases. So the reason that I do 2 canvases, you'll see in a moment, but it helps to conserve paint because we're going to actually have a lot of paint running off the canvas as we go along. So this way it goes onto the canvas below so that we don't miss the opportunity to save all that paint. When I do my background pours preparing for classes, I set up my studio so that I can do a whole bunch at one time. So now I have my 2 canvases sitting on my oven tray with my thumbtacks in the corners. So they will stay there as we go along. Now, as I talked to you about in our last video, I do wear gloves. So these are just disposable gloves. I get them in bulk at Canadian Tire. There's the Frank brand that are really, really good. You can get them at the grocery store as well. So just so that your hands are a little bit protected. I have a squirty bottle that is designated for what I call the base color. So the base color is just white with water. All the paint and water is a 50-50 ratio. 50% paint, 50% water. So you want to make sure it's shaken up really well. The colors that I have here, now when I do my background pours for classes, I have lots and lots of different color blues, but you don't need that many. It's up to you. If you want to have 6 or 7 different blues, absolutely. But I'm just going to show you that we can do this with what we have here. So this is the actual paint color. Same ratio really as, but it all is the same ratio, but I just have it in a separate container. So this is my paint color white. You want to make sure everything is really well shaken up. I have a silver. We use very little silver. You don't have to use silver at all. It's quite expensive. It's up to you if you want to add that. So then I have a light blue. I'm just going to set them up on top here. This is kind of what I do when I'm doing my pours. I keep all of my paints organized in a row like this. This is what I would call more of a medium blue. Doesn't matter what order we have these in. In fact, I like to move them around a little bit as I go along. This is a light purple. I really like this color, so I add this as well. And this is a darker blue. So that's what I've chosen today. I've just chosen light blue, medium tone blue, dark blue, and a light purple, a little bit of silver, and our white. So we have all of these colors here at the ready for us to go. You can't make a mistake with this, so don't worry about it. It's just meant to have fun. Here's our little spatula. So step 1, in order for the paint to move around, we have to have a slippery surface. So we just squirt a bunch of this base white onto the first canvas. We move it around a bit, get all the way to all the edges. It's not a super thick layer of paint. It's just enough so that everything's going to move around as we put the paint on. Okay, so that's it. Now all we do, and I grab 2 bottles at a time, you just start squirting paint on. It's so much fun. Now this is the silver. I recommend very little, just a couple of little drops. It does take over. Now if you're somebody who loves silver and you want lots of silver, then you can play with that and see how it comes out. Here's some white. Then all we do is we take the canvas in with both hands and we just start to move it around. Now already before we start, I can see I want some more blue because Marblehead Lighthouse is on water with sky behind it. So we want to make sure we have enough blue. Okay, so I am keeping the canvas, this canvas, somewhat over top of the second canvas, so that as you can see, it's dripping on to the canvas underneath. Most of it will get caught in this tray, which is good. But if it doesn't hit the tray, it's going to hit your tablecloth, and that's okay too. So we want to make sure we get to the edges of the front of our canvas. If you have some spots on the side that haven't quite covered, just lightly touch it with your fingers, because your fingers by now will have paint on them. And move your canvas around, and you'll see that you can just, or you can even grab some more from the canvas down below. Just tap it. And when you tap it, it fills in the color, because you ideally don't want to have any white showing on your canvas. So I think that looks really nice. So I'm going to set that aside. That's the one thing you want to make sure, is that you have a spot to put this to dry. So the second canvas has that base paint already on it, because this is where all of the paint dripped from our first attempt. Now it's not quite enough, so I'm going to grab my base paint and just add some more onto the surface. Spread it around with my spatula. Now as we're doing this, if you want to know in depth how to do these fluid acrylic pours and really make some spectacular art, my friend and art partner Andrea Mercier has a YouTube channel called Anlome, A-N-L-O-M-E. I'll put a link in the description. She has a lot of great videos on how to do this. She is the master at this fluid acrylic pour technique. So I encourage you to jump onto her channel and take a look. So it's the same thing again. It's so nice with this because it's all random. Every time you do one, it turns out different than the last one. You can do any shapes you want: circles, lines, dots. I'm somebody who doesn't like a lot of silver. You don't even have to use silver. There's our purple. I'm going to use a little bit more of this light color, and we'll start moving the paint around. And you can usually start to tell as you're going along whether the colors that are coming out are going to be what you want. So far I'm liking this. Now if it doesn't move as well as it could, you just set it down and add a bit more paint. I think I'm going to add a little bit more of this, a little bit more of that. There's no rules to this, which is what I love about it. We actually do Paint-Palooza gatherings with this, where you do 2 of your own backgrounds like this, at least 2. You can do more if you want, but we line everybody up and they do their own backgrounds, and it's a lot of fun. And you can get really firm with it. You can really give it a good jiggle. So I have not got enough paint, because I'm finding that my edges are just not. So this is good. You can see kind of how you deal with that. As long as I can get all the areas covered, I'm happy. You know, you can spend some time with your background and you can play around with moving the paint, but I like the randomness of it when I do it, so I don't worry too much about the design that's come out. And honestly, when you leave it to dry a couple of days later, when you come back to it, it always surprises me how nice it actually is. You think it might need some more, but it really doesn't. So that is the second one. So now we have 2 backgrounds. What's nice about this is a lot of the paintings that I do in this series are with a blue background. So now you have 2 done, and that's that. That's the end of that video. I just take off my gloves, and now my hands are clean. So thank you so much, and our next video will be starting to break down the steps necessary to paint Marblehead Lighthouse. Thank you so much. See you next time.